Remember the Iron Man magazine?
Iron
That
Man
had some stuff.
was more focused on Olympic lifting and powerlifting than the other two.
Yeah,
And they would
yeah.
have an
And then
article every month about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Weider magazines started carrying some powerlifting articles. Back probably in the early '80s. I remember reading some stuff about IPF Worlds. They would
Yeah.
cover it in a kind of a half-ass way, but they started paying attention to heavyweight being lifted.
And
And
Hatfield worked for them around that time.
who was that?
Hatfield was
Hatfield.
Fred
Yeah,
Hatfield
yeah, he
was one of
did. He
the
worked
editors.
for him.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever meet Fred Hatfield?
I've never met him. Now, no,
So I
no, that's
cold
not
called
true.
him.
No, that is
Oh, you met
absolutely
him?
not true. Now, let me
Where'd you meet him?
let me back this up. I say that just off the top of my head, but no, I did meet him, and I met him at the 1970. When was the Worlds in Dallas? Was that 80?
You-
I think it was 1980. The Worlds were in Dallas in 1980.
He was competing.
Or it might have been no. He was just there. He was there hanging around, and let me think. Was that 80 or 81? I was back from Colorado because it was the meet was in like November or something like that, and
Okay.
and Starr was down there.
Oh, wow.
And Starr was staying at Clay Patterson's house.
He was a power lifter.
Yeah. Clay started the USPF, which was the IPF affiliate at the time.
Yeah. I
And
was a state
his
rep
brother
for him.
Doug, Clay was kind of an interesting guy, but his brother Doug is a good guy. God almighty, I love him so much. He's a great man. So Starr was staying at Clay Patterson's house, and Starr was driving Clay's van. And Clay
Okay.
had a big van that held 10 people and stuff. So Starr was driving around in the van. He was driving the van, and I was there, and Jimmy Mosier was there. George Hector was there. We were all kind of hanging around. And in the back were several of the lifters, and Hatfield was in there with a girl he'd met at the meet. So I was around him at the time,
Yeah.
and but other than that, I've never met him.
How big was George Hector?
Oh, at the time, George was like 5'11". He might have been 6 foot and 365.
Just thick? Was he fat?
Oh no, he wasn't fat. He was just huge.
Just thick.
He was just
Just
huge. And
like the Young brothers were huge. That kind of, but he was bigger. But
he was bigger than
when
the
you see
young
guys
brothers.
bigger, I know, but just that thickness,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
that thickness, like you're like, you can't get that from lifting 315 on the deadlift, man.
No.
Those guys are doing
He had
750 for
45-inch waist and looked fine
Yeah. Well, his shoulders were like
because
this.
his shoulders are like this,
Yeah.
But no, George was a freak. He was a genetic freak. There's no doubt. And
He was a Maryland boy.
George was,
Yeah.
in fact, George decided at one time that he needed to lose a bunch of body weight. So he got down from 365 down to, I believe he lifted in that next meet at 242.
Wow.
And his deadlift went up 5 kilos.
He could get down to the bar better.
Yeah, he'd just get in a better mechanical position. His squat
Right.
dropped quite a bit, but his
bet.
deadlift went up 5 kilos.
Bench goes first, squat goes second, deadlift
Right.
goes third, don't you?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was exactly the pattern. But Now, Hatfield was in the van that night with us. We were driving around to the bars, and they're in Arlington, and that was an evening. These big old giant guys, and I'm hanging around with all these guys, and it just.
Did you know Star?
Man, what a deal! Join us again this week on Starting Strength Radio, where we talk to our friend Jim Steele. We're just going to sit down and have a beer with Jim and just talk about whatever comes to mind. Nothing is structured. We don't have any access to crime. Well, we do have some access to crime, but those just came up at the course of the conversation. But if you want to just sit in the room with us while we talk, this is the podcast for you this Friday on Starting Strength Radio.